Okay, so we have a few questions from the audience. I'll start with this one. I think it's for you, Tara. So what is the incentive for Bank Average to share Jenny's CID data, knowing that they might lose a customer by doing so? And who holds the key to CID data?
Okay, I think probably the short answer is there's no particular incentive for Bank Average. They have to get it would be the law. The way the CDR is going to work is when a sector comes online, certain data holders within that sector are told they have to give up data when the consumer requests like this. So yeah, I agree that there's probably little incentive for the banks to do this, which is why they're not doing it now.
But they benefit on the other side, right? So when Bank Average has a customer, they're like, the other one, they want to have the data as well, so that they can do the same sort of exchange and gain new customers. So I think they do have that incentive.
Yeah, there's nothing stopping them from also being a data receiver, and we're anticipating that any sensible bank would be, because So hopefully that's a reasonably short answer to that one. Was there a follow-up to that, or was that?
There's a few questions.
Yeah, I think there was a few embedded in there. Can you remind me of the second part? Or in the technology sense, or who owns the data? Yeah, we're sort of getting into a minefield here from a sort of legal perspective. I think the sort of short answer is legally there is no ownership of data, and the CDR sort of really sidesteps those questions, and it's a portability right. It's not a property right. And yeah, there is a significant difference there, and that's quite deliberate.
It strikes me that it's basically the same as what's being offered through mobile phone portability. Do you own your mobile phone number? Not really, it's just a number that's been assigned to you, but what's really important is being able to take your phone number somewhere else and work with the same phone number. And I think probably there's a sense in which in this case you're trying to say, let's step aside the data package that's been created in a kind of a collaborative way between transactions between a company and you use their platform to create data about yourself, so they're involved too. But the key thing is that we can get that package from one entity to another, because at the moment there's a lot of frictions to doing that, and that's creating marketing efficiencies.
Yeah, I think that's a very nice way of putting it. Thank you, Simon.
If not, so Simon and Marco, do you agree that consumers should have right to their data, or should we designate consumers as owners of their data as in Europe? So maybe briefly touch on the process in Europe.
Yeah, so the way things work in Europe, you mentioned the difference before, was that you own your personal data in Europe. I don't think America did anything related to personal data yet. I think the lobbies of the tech companies in California is too strong. I personally believe because it takes time, your time to build your digital identity, you should possess your personal data. But again, it's a new approach, it's very futuristic, and it will take time. It will take time to understand that, I guess. I don't know.
I'd just like to add, it will be interesting to see how Europe makes it work. Are there requests to delete data? What if that data was part of an important contract? Can you actually delete it?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, I think for now it's just working on really basic level. Well, if you sign up for something, you can ask to delete all your personal data. That's how the GDPR is working, basically.
I actually think, so having just said what I said about transactions and its collaboration and all that sort of stuff, the reality is it's like, why do tech company bosses not have their kids in schools with iPads or give them accounts? When you know enough about the technologies available, and I guess I work a bit at the bleeding edge there, I prefer more data to be considered personal, because the thing is, you might say for a moment, oh, you know, Simon's eye colour, his height, his body mass, you know, I don't know, his sexual preference or whatever, that's pretty personal stuff. And you'd say, oh, well, clearly, you know, his pattern of travel to Monash for the last, you know, 10 years is not that personal in the same sort of way. Actually, with a bit of machine learning and stuff, I can get some pretty, like, close to the bone things out of that, right? And it's been shown before through open journalism and so on. I can start piecing together patterns and associations and merging with other things and see things like, oh, I think your relative lives here, or actually you've got a mistress in this location, and like those things are not. We're not talking airy fairy. We're actually talking kind of verifiable, you know, 95% accuracy, you know, trained models that can generate predictions on this score. So, you know, the potential of what appears on face value on the tin to be not that personal or not that private, if I have enough of it and I can somehow merge it and join it to other data, it actually starts to become really personal. And people snap back pretty quickly. There's a lot of whiplash about that when someone discovers, oh, I didn't realise my iPhone knew or could be used to generate that kind of identification about me. I think recently the most celebrated one is probably Facebook likes and identifying very accurately very personal preferences of individuals. Now, whose data is it? So is it that the machine learning algorithm, the engineers, they own it because they kind of mined your data to create that? Or is it the fact that there's so much of your personhood that is enmeshed and kind of embedded in your pattern of life, which is Marco's point, your data is your life, your time use is now being captured in such a way that this is actually kind of like a personal diary of you, that actually I think we really need to honour that and say that's really now we've got such a kind of cookie crumbs of your life, a kind of a fingerprint, you know, a kind of body print in the sand. It's not you in the flesh, but it's you basically in all other senses of the word. So I'd actually prefer a lot more concern, and my concern, I guess, for regulation and regulators is they may not yet be aware enough of the tricks of the trade that can very personalise what seems on the surface not that personal data. And that's where I think we're living in a world where we need huge catch-up in the knowledge and understanding of the use to protect citizens' rights in this area. My take.
Well, if I can add something. If you think about what happened with Cambridge Analytica, WhatsApp yesterday, 2 days ago, Yahoo 2 years ago, Uber, Google, when you give all your data and you allow those companies to start control and own those data, everything can happen. Then it comes into play the privacy level. Well, I'll just tell you this little story. I was working with Aaron once, and so he posted a picture and he received, so as you can see, he doesn't have hair. And he received a lot of ads the day after about products to grow back your hair. So this is, I don't know, like, it felt like, oh, this is wrong. And that's why there's just a limit of the thing that you can do. You can't just break into someone's life and flood the Facebook page with like strange product that you really don't need. And here comes to play what I said before about low quality, because he didn't search for it. It's just like the algorithm that interprets these as he wants his hair back. It truly doesn't, I think, I don't know.
Was it from the image? Was there any text from the image? Oh, so
Yeah, just at the bit.
Yeah,
It's just the algorithm that
Yeah,
calculates everything.
it's a name on the image that's identified.
Yeah, and just sort of leading off that, this is a question for Mary and Tara. Like, what governments around the world do you think are best regulating personal data?
I've come across good examples, for example, in New Zealand. The government releases a lot of administrative data. You know, they're probably 10 years ahead of Australia. So, for example, they've got this business longitudinal database. You know, when we worked with our New Zealand colleagues, they were able to get access to that very quickly to do some analysis of firm dynamics. In Australia, you might need a year of approvals. That was one example. The other example I came across study of youth unemployment rates and how they're related to different young people wage levels. And so everyone who works, all their payroll records are accessible. Every person has a unique identifier. So the researchers were able to track people from employment to unemployment. They were able to track where they went to school, their grades, what their parents did for a job. So those countries just have a general level of hyper-transparency. And that level of transparency builds trust. So transparency builds trust, and it works all the way around. So they're a couple of good examples. Tara? Okay, I know less about sort of open data than Mary, but I'll keep this really to sort of data portability. And I'd actually say that Australia's doing pretty well in this space. Few people are sort of further down the track than us. The UK has moved quicker into banking data, so they've got open banking there is about a year and a half already embedded, and that sort of sits within the GDPR sort of overlay. But I think the trick in Europe is going from a very generic right to actually operationalising it, and it'll be interesting to see if anyone else does. There are other jurisdictions that are doing it in a quite different way, not so much from government regulation, but through other mechanisms. And I think, yeah, that's interesting. Singapore's a good one to watch there.
There's some cities are doing a pretty amazing job. City of London has an awesome data portal as well. So they make a lot of their activity data in the city and so on available through APIs as well. Melbourne is trying that. So recently you can get access to vacant or not vacant car spaces in real time. And so there's been apps created off the back of that. That's just gold. And there's a huge amount of, so for example, the labour data, that is just, I mean, for labour economics, understanding transitional unemployment, long-term unemployment, that's fantastic, and really potentially produces vastly welfare improving policy recommendations. But we just can't contextualise that because not every country is able to, have that hyper level of or not willing to yet have that kind of hyper level of transparency. From a research perspective, that kind of state-owned data would be, I am all for having more access to it. And I like the notion that you mentioned before that act as citizens. It's effectively not an option. They have been required to interact with the state. It's nice to then think that the state makes those sort of interactions, obviously to a limit of personalised data, available within some aggregation or some format.
Another example, so in Australia, if you're in an emergency department, in only 20% of cases will your GP be informed of that. And that's going to affect the level of care you get, level of follow-up care. Do you need to repeat everything that's said? In other countries, that's over 50%. So there are clear benefits to you, in terms of the services government delivers to you, better use of data.
Cool. We have time for one last question. There's a few questions that are around concerns about sharing consumer data, sharing our own data, concerns that it might lead to price discrimination or disadvantages to the consumer. How can we change this mindset? What are the benefits for consumers?
I'd just like to pick up on what Marco said. Once you have explicit pricing and more explicit exchange, I think you might have more willingness to trade and reap benefits. So you're already exchanging with Google. If you log into Google Maps, you have more functionality than using your data. So you're already exchanging, but once it's explicit, as economists we know that will result in better welfare enhancing outcomes. And the other thing is, it's really hard to predict what will happen in the future. Maybe Google and Facebook will be disrupted. If you look at industries that have been disrupted, like traditional media, that had non-transparent pricing, where journalism was subsidised by display and classified advertising. You see the same thing in Google and Facebook. They are ripe for disruption.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the tension of the question is around, for example, market segmentation, so down to the individual. So providing you pricing that's pertains to you basically alone versus someone else. I'm not sure where the regulation sits on that. It's pretty hard to rein in, but it's very algorithmically possible. We generally, as consumers, dislike that. The reason why they get away with it is because of exactly the problem that it's difficult. There aren't enough providers of the same services. There's network lock-in, coordination problems, and so to the extent to which this whole transaction I'm having with these platform providers becomes more explicit, and actually this data mining activity, extraction activity that is happening en masse by them becomes part of the priced transaction, perhaps with the technology Marco has in mind. I think that's going to be a benefit. At the moment, unfortunately, it is, I totally agree, largely hidden, and but we know they're making a lot of money out of it, and that transaction at the moment I think is very poorly understood. But from the share price, you can see that somehow, it's going well for them.
It's a very futuristic thing. Looking at 5, 10 years time, more, probably more. Who knows?
And the big examples, for example, building contents insurance. This is not a new technology thing, but just over time, insurers have gone from pricing at state level to almost individual property level, assessing your property by, how high is it from ground level, what material, and that has regressive impacts. That benefits people with good quality houses. They get cheaper insurance premiums. If you're in a floodplain area or you've got an old house, you're going to pay more. So there is potential for this to, I guess, that the vulnerable and low paying more money. People are talking about banks looking at your Uber Eats ordering. Do you gamble on sports bet? Those things might have effects on your ability to get home.
I just accord with everything that's been said, and maybe just suggest that these are real questions that will need to be answered, but maybe the answer lies slightly outside the portability space and in sort of different policy questions about as a society how we want to protect things in health insurance. We don't allow for that. These are decisions we can make with a bit more transparency about what's going on.
So I know there's a lot of questions out there. Sorry we didn't get to all of them today, but you can stay back and ask your panelists individually. Thank you so much to our panelists for coming here today and sharing your time and expertise with us. And thank you for the audience for coming out today. I know it's week 10 or 11 and you're all stressed out, so really appreciate it. And thanks to ESSA for hosting this event. I'll give the mic back to Nick.